Hi everyone, I'm Andy. Welcome to Andy's Mindscape. Today we explore a chilling tale involving Amarjit Chohan, a wealthy businessman whose entire family vanished suddenly. On the 15th of February 2003, London police received a strange call from Onkar Verma in New Zealand regarding his missing sister Nancy and her family. Nancy was 25 years old and married to Amarjit Chohan, a 46-year-old Indian immigrant who built a successful freight company worth millions of pounds. Amarjit Chohan was a millionaire, but lived very modestly, avoiding luxury cars or nannies, even after his two young sons, Devon and Ravender, were born. Onkar Verma stayed in close contact with his sister Nancy and their mother, who had moved to London to help care for the young children. In early February 2003, Nancy invited Onkar to visit London, an invitation he happily accepted as he wished to see his mother and nephews. On the 13th of February, Onkar called Nancy as usual, but the tone of the conversation was heavy with worry because Amarjit had not returned home. Amarjit's phone was off, and his employees said he went to Stonehenge for an urgent business meeting, which was uncharacteristic for the devoted family man. Nancy then received a strange voice email from Amarjit, claiming he was at a meeting and would return soon. But something felt very wrong. Nancy told Onkar that while the voice was Amarjit, he spoke in English instead of their usual Punjabi, which made her feel deeply uneasy. Onkar advised her to wait one more day, but when he called on the 14th of February, nobody answered the phone at the house in London. On the 15th of February, after still receiving no answer, Onkar contacted Scotland Yard to report that his sister and her entire family had gone missing. Police initially suspected a kidnapping and visited the home, but they found no signs of forced entry or any struggle within the quiet residence. Neighbors told investigators that Amarjit had been planning to move back to India because Nancy missed home and he preferred the education there. Scotland Yard concluded that the family had likely moved back to India suddenly, but Onkar refused to believe they would leave without a word. Determined to find the truth, Onkar flew from New Zealand to London on the 5th of March to personally inspect his sister's empty home for clues. Inside the house, Onkar found his mother's prayer book, an item she never traveled without, proving the family had left under great duress. Onkar convinced Detective Andy Rowell to investigate further, and they decided to visit Amarjit's freight company to check on the business status. To their surprise, the company was running normally, but had a new owner named Belinda Braywin, who took over just days after the disappearance. A man named Kenneth Regan had brought Belinda to the company, presenting a typed letter signed by Amarjit, stating he had sold the business. The employees did not find the sale odd because Amarjit, 46 with thinning hair, had mentioned selling his company to go back to India. Kenneth Regan was not a stranger. He was Amarjit's personal driver, which made the letter he presented seem much more authentic and trustworthy. Detective Andy Rowell interviewed Belinda Brewen, who told a bizarre story about how she became the owner of the large freight company so quickly. Linda explained she met Kenneth Regan years ago in a bar where he appeared wealthy, always carrying a suitcase full of large cash stacks. Their relationship ended when Kenneth was sent to prison, but he contacted her again in 2003 with an offer for a major business deal. Linda was struggling financially and agreed to meet Kenneth at her farm in Exeter to discuss his plan to acquire a transport company. Kenneth offered Belinda over £70,000 just to act as the titular owner for a few days, a deal she could not refuse. Detective Andy Rowell then questioned Kenneth Regan, who claimed he was secretly auditing the company for a friend who wanted to buy it. Kenneth said Amarjeet, 46 with thinning hair, wanted to sell because he owed a lot of money and needed to flee his mounting debts. Andy Rowell investigated Kenneth's background and discovered he was a convicted drug trafficker who once smuggled illegal goods through his own freight company. The detective realized Kenneth could not afford the £3 million needed to buy the company, suggesting a much darker motive for the takeover. Cell tower data showed that on the day Amarjeet vanished, his phone traveled to Stonehenge, which was exactly where Kenneth Regan lived at the time. Both phones then traveled to Exeter, where Belinda's farm was located, and Amarjeet's phone signal eventually disappeared forever in that specific rural area. Andy Rowell suspected a conspiracy and asked Belinda if anything strange happened at her farm around the date the family went missing. Belinda recalled that on the 18th of February, she returned home to find two men digging large holes in her field with a heavy excavator machine. The men were William Hornsey and Peter Rees, friends of Kenneth, who claimed they were digging drainage ditches to help with the heavy rain. Kenneth arrived and took Belinda away for dinner, and by the time she returned, the holes had been filled with gravel and leveled off. Andy Rowell planned to search the farm, but he received a deceptive call from a man claiming to be Amarjeet's friend, William Hornsey. William lied to the police, saying Amarjeet was hiding in Wales to avoid creditors, which successfully delayed the search of the Exeter farm. When police finally dug up the drainage ditches at the farm, they found them empty, as the suspects had moved the evidence during the delay. In April 2003, 2 months after the disappearance, a father and son canoeing near Bournemouth discovered a body floating in the cold sea water. The body was identified as Amarjeet Chohan, the 46-year-old businessman, and forensic tests linked hair found at the farm to his DNA profile. Police realized the large holes were meant for the entire family, and they feared Nancy and the children had met the same tragic fate. Kenneth Regan, William Hornsey, and Peter Rees had already fled, but a woman in Coleford reported that Peter was hiding in her house. Peter Rees, consumed by guilt, confessed to Wendy that Kenneth had murdered the entire family, including the 3 adults and 2 small children. Kenneth was later caught in Belgium, while William was found 6 weeks after, but all 3 men refused to speak during the police interrogations. Nancy's body was eventually found in the sea, but 3 members of the family remained missing, leaving the investigation in a desperate state. For 9 months, police followed thousands of leads but lacked the direct evidence needed to convict the 3 men for the horrific murders. The breakthrough came when William's son provided a suitcase containing blank sheets of paper signed by Amarjeet Chohan before his sudden death. This proved the company was stolen through coercion, but the police still needed to prove the suspects were with Amarjeet on the day he vanished. Law enforcement requested a final forensic check of the remains, hoping for a miracle despite the bodies having been in the sea for months. A miracle appeared inside Amarjeet's right sock, where a small piece of paper had been hidden and preserved against his foot during his ordeal. The paper was a credit card statement addressed to Kenneth Regan at his home, dated just 1 day before Amarjeet Chohan was reported missing. Amarjeet must have realized he was going to die and secretly hid the evidence to lead the police to his killer. From beyond the grave. In May 2005, Kenneth Regan, William Hornsey, and Peter Rees stood trial at the Old Bailey, facing charges for the brutal family murders. Despite the missing bodies and the defendant's silence, the mountain of circumstantial evidence, including the note in the sock, was truly overwhelming. The jury found all 3 men guilty, bringing a sense of justice to the tragic end of the Chohan family after years of investigation. Kenneth Regan and William Hornsey were sentenced to life in prison without parole, ensuring they would never walk free again for their crimes. Peter Rees received a lengthy prison sentence for his role in the murders, ending one of the most disturbing cases in British criminal history. This story serves as a reminder of the length a victim might go to for justice, even in their very final moments of life. Thank you for joining me on this journey through a dark chapter of crime. I am Andy, and I hope this story stayed with you. If you enjoyed this video, remember to subscribe to my channel. I am Andy. I will see you in the next episode. Goodbye.